Okay, hopefully this works. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So, welcome to WrestleDiary Live. This is basically because I haven't um, got the time or the computer power at the minute to make a video on wrestling. Hello, Nintendo 2009. I wanted to talk about wrestling and have done for quite a while, but there's just been too many other things going on. So I thought I would make a live stream, and it's quite appropriate and timely right now, considering we are roughly about 30 minutes away from Survivor Series 2018. Let me know if the audio is coming through okay, or if it's too loud or too quiet. So, there's three things I really want to talk about, three main topics when it comes to the world of wrestling. And I was looking back, I didn't even do anything about WrestleMania this year, which I probably should have. But I know that the majority of the people who follow my channel are not interested in wrestling. So there's that. But I'm interested in it and I really like talking about it. But movies always take precedence on my channel, so that's kind of just the way it is. So, before we kind of talk about Survivor Series tonight, I want to talk about the three things. Number one, the return of Shawn Michaels. Number two, the rise of Becky Lynch. And number three, the heel turn of Daniel Bryan. So, Shawn Michaels, my favorite wrestler of all time, coming back for a match at WWE Crown Jewel. Now, I'm not going to talk about the politics of Crown Jewel, and unlike my good friend CM42 TV, I'm not going to say I'm not going to talk about the politics and then talk about them. I'm literally not going to talk about them. It is what it is. The event was what it was. A very weird, strange event, but I was excited to see Shawn Michaels wrestle again. You know, he's my favorite wrestler of all time. There's obviously controversy over the fact that he retired 8.5 years ago in an incredible match, had one of the best retirements in wrestling history, and now he's going to turn back on that promise that he made to himself and to us to retire in 2010 WrestleMania 26. So he always said years and years after people asking him, "Will you come back? Will you come back?" And he said, "I'll never come back unless there's a story that's so good I can't pass it up." And the story wasn't really good, was it? Wasn't really good, was it? So I mean, it was okay. It was all right. I mean, it was like the first time ever DX versus the Brothers of Destruction, but it wasn't the great kind of epic HBK story that you would think would entice him back. But then there was apparently a big money offer on the table from the Saudi Arabian princes, and off trotted HBK to Saudi Arabia to wrestle again in a tag match, which makes sense. It's a bit less of a toll on the body. It's a bit less of a, kind of work to do in terms of getting back into shape. Although he's in incredible shape, he looked great. I think. I do wish that he had waited a couple of years until he shaved all his hair off, even though his hair was thinning so much on the top. It was very strange seeing bald Michaels at Crown Jewel. But what I've seen from this match is people getting so upset, people getting so frustrated, and refusing to watch the match. Even people saying, "I'm not going to watch this match because he's kind of going back on his promise, and because I really like the way he ended his career. I don't want to sully that by watching this match." I know people who are wrestlers who haven't watched that match. And I even know some of my old wrestling friends who turned it off 5 minutes in because they just couldn't. It's too cringe-worthy for them. And I don't know what they really expected. I think the only way you were going to enjoy those matches, the Triple H Undertaker match in Australia, excuse me, and the Crown Jewel match, was to meet those matches on their own terms. Their own terms being these are matches with guys in their 50s who aren't active wrestlers anymore. Kane over 50, Undertaker over 50, Shawn Michaels over 50, Triple H 49. None of them wrestle regularly. Triple H has a bit more of a bit of experience as an older wrestler than the other guys because he's had a few more matches. But for all intents and purposes, these are guys who do not wrestle anymore. What were you expecting? Yeah, they were some of the best of all time, but 10, 15 years ago was their prime. So for me, I was just expecting a spectacle match, an exhibition match, if you will, a spectacle match. Just getting to see these guys in the ring together was cool enough of a moment. When The Undertaker tagged in to kind of go face to face with Shawn Michaels in a ring again, that was cool as shit. It didn't matter that they weren't moving as quickly as they were before. It was about the moment. But I will say, actually, I think Undertaker looked better than he's looked in years. And I think my personal theory is that he was really motivated to be in the ring with Shawn Michaels again because he was doing the leg drop on the apron. He was just moving a lot better than I'd ever seen him move years and years and years. Triple H obviously hurt tore his bicep, tricep, his pec. Was it his pec? I think. Minutes into the match, which full credit to Triple H for finishing the match, but also I didn't notice that he was hurt. It makes more sense now because him and the Undertaker tried to do a whip into the barricade and they both kind of fell into it with each other. It was awful, but you know he soldiered through it, and Shawn Michaels had to kind of pick up the slack. Now, when he did that moonsault off the top rope to the outside, and two absolute fucking tanks of men like Undertaker and Kane couldn't catch him, and he fucking face hit the floor, I just thought, oh my god. And he recently was talking about that on the Edge and Christian podcast, how he felt his whole spine kind of go like just awful. And I saw the regret painted over that man's face after he landed from that moonsault. And at the end of the match, you see him very audibly saying to Triple H, "We're too old for this," And it wasn't like a kind of it's like, what are we doing here? It was fun. I enjoyed seeing it. He had some of that magic still. He could do the nip up. He could kind of do the elbow drop, but it was what it was. It seems like he's not going to do it again. He said afterwards that that match showed him why he didn't do it for 8.5 years and why he's never going to do it again. He was asked again on the Edge and Christian podcast if he'd wrestle again. He said negative. So we're not going to see that Shawn Michaels WrestleMania match anymore. But for me, I don't see the real issue. Would it have been nice if he never wrestled again? Sure, but you look at Ric Flair's retirement. Ric Flair retired at WrestleMania 24 in a great match with Shawn Michaels, and it was a beautiful send off. Yeah, he had a few matches after that in TNA. Yeah, he had a few matches after that in Australia with Hulk Hogan, but he retired at WrestleMania 24. It is what it is. I mean, Shawn Michaels came out a few years ago at WrestleMania in his full attire, did a few super kicks and stuff. I mean, why weren't people kicking up a fuss then that he'd put his wrestling boots back on? Because it wasn't really a proper match, and this wasn't really to me a kind of proper big singles match. It was just these four legends going at it and kind of just having fun, really. I just feel like it was fun to see those guys in a big match. It was more about the moment than them trying to recapture their youth or have a five-star classic. So that's my thoughts on that. It was great to see my favorite of all time back again, but you can't expect it to be the way it was before. Although to be fair, I really think he can still go. Hello to the Blu-ray collector and hello to Infinite Skittles. Am I looking forward to Survivor Series? Yes. I'm trying to rattle through my 3 topics and then we'll talk about Survivor Series, hopefully just before it starts, so I don't keep any of you who might be watching it when it starts in 26 minutes. So that was the first topic. And I wanted to make videos about all of these things, but it just didn't pan out. So bear with me. We're going with the live stream format. And to the people watching, let me know how the audio sounds because I can't really test it from where I'm sitting right now. Number 2, actually, we'll jump to Daniel Bryan, who for a time was my favorite active wrestler. To go and see my favorite wrestler of the moment, Daniel Bryan, at WrestleMania 30 was something I'll never forget. And to see him kind of reach that high and then to just fall off the top and then come back and then have to retire was heartbreaking. And the fact that he came back this year is unbelievable, something I never would have expected. It really seemed like, um, you know, they weren't going to clear him to wrestle again. Okay, the audio sounds good. Thank you very much. So I just would never have, in my wildest dreams, thought he would come back. And he did. And I didn't really care. The way they did it was just so lackluster to me. It was fun to see him back in that same building at WrestleMania this year. But after that, it was, yeah, the feud with Miz, but it didn't grab me, you know? This is like my favorite wrestler coming back, and I wasn't interested. Now I'm interested. Last week he beat AJ Styles on SmackDown randomly, turned heel, and is now the WWE champion heading into Survivor Series tonight, where he will face Brock Lesnar. It feels very rushed to me. It feels very slapdash. I'm not a fan of it as far as the timing is concerned, but I am a fan of it as far as what it means for Daniel Bryan. This is something different, something he can sink his teeth into. He's not doing the same old yes, yes, yes. Do you know what I loved when he first started doing that and he was literally screaming, yes, yes. He stopped doing that after a while, and it just got to the point where he's just like it's just a puppet just running down the ramp going, smile on his face, doing the motions, everyone's chanting it, but he's not shouting it. There isn't a point to be made there, you know? And look, I was there at WrestleMania 30 screaming my fucking lungs off, yes, 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 you know. But it feels like that is kind of it's become its own thing now. The yes thing has become just something the fans do when they're really excited about something or they really want to see something. They approve of it. So I would love to see him continue doing the yes chants, but as the arrogant, obnoxious origins of that yes chant, where he's just screaming it at people like yes, like that would be great. But I think the direction they're going to go in is just him being more just kind of like just the kind of the cocky smile, like I'm a heel now. So I hope that they kind of really take it in a direction that's now I want to talk. Yeah, I hope they take it in a direction that really services what I think Brian can do as a heel. After he beat AJ and he did that classic old Brian Danielson hold the two hands and stomp on the head, like that's the shit I want to see. I mean, if he did that to Brock Lesnar tonight, I would lose my shit. But I don't think that's going to happen. And I'll get to that at the end of this, and I'll talk about my predictions for tonight. So Daniel Bryan, so out of left field. I don't know what the thinking was behind that. I was so excited for AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar because the AJ Brock match from last year was the best match Brock has had, I think, probably in his entire run in WWE. It just looked like he actually cared about having the match. It actually was a competitive match, you know. It was awesome. I loved it. So I was really excited for the rematch, but knowing that Brock is going to UFC, is he going to want to do anything? I don't know. Who knows? And again, I'll talk about the Bryan Brock Lesnar match in just a second. So the third thing I want to talk about to round off this kind of trilogy of thoughts is the rise of Becky Lynch. I have never been a fan of Becky Lynch. I've never been a fan of Becky Lynch. I've always thought she was a good wrestler. You know, going back to NXT, I remember thinking her T-bone suplexes were very good. I liked it when she changed her hair up, dyed it red and stuff. She looked cool, but she never grabbed me. You know, out of the four horsewomen, as they call themselves, she's the one who I was the least interested in. Sasha, great. Bailey, my favorite. Charlotte, just fantastic. Becky, really good, but just didn't have that spark for me, didn't have that kind of, for me, an interest in her character in the ring. She comes across as very likable, really funny. When she won the SmackDown title the first time, I was really happy for her, but in the ring as a wrestler, just wasn't into her character really. Nothing really grabbed me, and that's fine. But now something seems to be happening. No, something definitely is happening with Becky. And it really goes to show what confidence can do to someone. Not that she wasn't confident before, but when you give a wrestler in the WWE, in any company, I suppose, when you give them the brass ring, as they call it, and they ask you to run with it, or they give you the chance to run with it, I guarantee you, at least 70% of the people in WWE right now, if they were given that same treatment, you would see a side of them that you'd never even considered before. Because with confidence, with being put in a spot where you're projected to be like a powerful kind of person and player, it does wonders, and it has done wonders for Becky Lynch. And I'm suddenly now a big fan of her because this side of her, this kind of mean streak, this kind of badass, tough kind of persona is something I feel like she's just been waiting to unleash the whole time. And suddenly it just clicks into place for me now, where every week I want to know what Becky Lynch is doing, you know? She's the most interesting person in the entire company right now, and it is absolutely heartbreaking that she got cold cocked by Nia Jax on Raw last week. I mean, that was kind of her moment, that the bloodshot face, the kind of, I mean, that was a real moment. That was one of those things you can't manufacture. That was, people keep saying it, the Austin 316 moment. It's, like the Austin 316 promo, that was completely spur of the moment. And in one fell swoop, he invented Austin 316 says, I just whipped your ass. And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. Sometimes these things, they just get plucked out of the air like magic. And for her, that kind of moment where she kind of just beat the shit out of Ronda Rousey and just had her face mashed up, but still had that confident look on her face, that swagger, the feeling that she owned the building as she walked out through the crowd. I mean, that's kind of one of those unforgettable moments. That is what wrestling is all about. And it's unfortunate that the cost of that was she can't wrestle because she got concussed through that punch. Now we can talk about the punch and what it was, whether it was deliberate or not. You know, I think Nia Jax is just a very unsafe worker. We've seen it time and time again. She's knocking people out left, right, and center. She's dropping people on their heads. She fucked up Bailey before SummerSlam once. I think she just, I don't know if she doesn't know her own strength. And I like Nia Jax. I do. In fact, I think that Ronda Rousey's best singles match was against Nia Jax. It was really, really good. But man, it was such a shame, but perhaps it could be a blessing in disguise. South Newton One says Becky has been my favorite wrestler for the last couple of years. It has been awesome to see her rise. See, that's the thing. Again, I haven't been a big fan of her really before this, so it's not like I'm jumping on a bandwagon, but I'm just seeing something I didn't see before. So for someone like you and all the people out there who've been such a big fan of her and supporter of her for years, it must be so much more exciting to see how big she's become. It's just awesome. It's really cool and it's just different, to have a woman truly be the most interesting and exciting persona in the company. I love her whole shtick as like the man, like it's throwing the whole gender thing on its head, and that's fun. But also just the whole idea that she beat Charlotte, right? Charlotte Flair, and her father's famous shtick was to be the man, you got to beat the man. And what did Becky do? She beat the man's daughter. And that match, by the way, I mean, there's so much I haven't talked about, but the Becky Charlotte last woman standing match was one of my favorite matches in a long time. I love that stuff where it's all about kind of a really intense rivalry. It's a big blow off match, and they're just beating the shit out of each other. You believe it. You believe it's a fight. And they have these big moments, but it's not just all about the table crashes. It's about the fighting. It's about the kind of interpersonal kind of workings of their long storied relationship as people and as wrestlers and rivals and as teammates as well in the whole four horsewoman thing. So that has just really been the most exciting thing about WWE. And now we're not getting the Ronda Rousey match, which would have been so great to see. They both got the armbar submission. There was an intensity there that was really, I think, going to just explode tonight. But she can't wrestle. And they're doing the Charlotte match instead. So now I'm going to segue into my thoughts about Survivor Series. We have about 15 minutes before the show starts. So the Ronda Rousey Charlotte match. I'm really looking forward to it. I think Charlotte's fantastic. But to compare her to Becky, I think that Becky just feels like and comes across as a tougher person. Charlotte feels manufactured to be tough. It feels like they want her to seem tough, and she is tough, but Becky has that thing you can't teach where she seems like a proper tough woman. And again, that's something you can't really manufacture. So I actually think, and I never would have considered it before, because for me, when Ronda Rousey came in, I thought, right, they're going to build towards Ronda and Charlotte at WrestleMania next year. Surely that's the plan. Never considered Becky. But really, the Becky Ronda match really makes more sense. Just as far, I mean, they got similar builds, they got the same finishes, and they both. I mean, you can say Becky looks tough. You can see the beating she took in that last woman standing match, and now you can see her getting her face caved in by Nia Jax, blood all over the place, concussed, and she still is just brushing it off like nothing. She's tough, and she's literally proven it in front of the world. So I actually think it might be a blessing in disguise that we might run into WrestleMania next year with Becky versus Ronda. That could be the main event of WrestleMania. I mean, if the interest keeps up, and they could go to it where perhaps Becky loses the title, she has to relinquish it, perhaps they could kind of make it seem like her concussion is a lot worse than it is. Could you imagine Becky Lynch winning the Royal Rumble and challenging Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania? I mean, obviously Ronda is going to win. There's no way Becky's going over, but it's more about the moment, it's more about the match. And yeah, I'll try and get to Takeover before we end this. I want to try and end this before Survivor Series starts, in case anyone is actually gonna watch it. Nick says Becky Rousey Mania 35 headliner. Yeah, like I was just talking about it. I mean, I think that that could have the power to be the main event, and I think that Vince probably would like to get that out of the way. Do you know what I mean? I feel like there's been so much like build up of like the women's first this, first that. I mean, literally the only thing left now is for a women's match to be the last match of WrestleMania. And once they do it, I feel like Vince can kind of breathe and go, okay, we don't need to do that again. We've done it. Okay, get off my back. But also, is there any year where it could be more likely when Roman Reigns is out? Their top guy is out. John Cena isn't really in main events anymore. He's kind of really scaled back. I could see it happening. What Brock Lesnar match is going to be so exciting, they need to put it on last. I think that the Ronda Rousey Becky Lynch match could potentially be a main event at WrestleMania, if not one of the bigger matches. It just needs to keep the momentum, and I just hope and pray to God nothing else happens with Becky health wise, because to see someone on such a roll, it feels like her whole life has been building towards this moment in her wrestling career, and I don't want to see it cut short by something stupid like it has been recently. Anyway, so the Charlotte Ronda match, I'm really excited to see how it's going to go. If they're going to try and give it 20 minutes, if they're going to do some screwy finish, and so it's not really a proper match, and they save it for WrestleMania or next year or whatever. I don't know, but I mean, they definitely, I think, have showed that they have faith in a Becky Ronda match at WrestleMania, because it felt like the Charlotte match was being held off on so much. So I mean, they could have done Ronda against Asuka, for example, and they wouldn't be kind of ruining a one-time match that they care about. And that kind of saddens me too. I think Asuka just she just brushed under the carpet since WrestleMania. It's a real shame, but I still am grateful for the run that Asuka had leading up to WrestleMania. And I guess I haven't even talked about WrestleMania very briefly. My favorite match was the Charlotte Asuka match. Loved it. Wish it had been 5 minutes longer. Could have been an absolute classic. Although I don't know, it was a toss up between that and the Ronda Rousey tag match, but I think my favorite match was still the Charlotte Asuka match. So obviously, who's going to win tonight, Ronda or Charlotte? I think Ronda's going to go over on that one. I think they need to keep her strong. Running into WrestleMania, it just makes sense, for someone to come in like Ronda Rousey, such a big name, to kind of win the title, to be undefeated in singles. I think in singles competition, um, you run that through to WrestleMania and you make it a thing. So I'm excited for the future of that, and I hope that it really pans out in a way that it deserves to be panned out in, because I think that, yeah, I'm just repeating myself. I think the Becky thing is really cool and exciting, and I only hope it leads to something really cool at WrestleMania. But on the subject of the women, I'm still gutted that Sasha and Bailey are doing fuck all, because they're fucking great. And it's just a shame. You kind of, you have to trade off things when someone like Ronda Rousey comes in. You kind of have to make her the champion. She kind of has to be the focal point. They're kind of hedging all their bets on her, and I understand why. But she is. I mean, I got to give Ronda Rousey so much credit, because I never thought when she signed that she would be doing what she's doing now. I thought every 3 months a big pay-per-view match, a bit of a spectacle. She's doing house shows. She's doing the international house shows. She's wrestling on Raw. So I give her all the credit for actually becoming one of the, I don't want to say one of the boys, but one of the women, like a proper member of the locker room. And her improvement is really quite staggering. There's still a lot of moments where you kind of see the seams around the edges where it's, she's wrestling Nikki Bella and going, okay, are you ready? And it's like, oh god, she's been watching John Cena tapes. But I just think, like, if she keeps her rate of progression going, holy shit. I mean, where could she be in a year or two? And then there's so much potential for big moments. But anyway, like I was saying, Ronda's kind of dominating Raw as far as that's concerned. I just wish that Bailey and Sasha had something to sink their teeth into. It felt that they were going to do something together, and then they just threw it under the carpet again. Man, Vince doesn't want that Oscar. No, I mean, her English, man. That's it. She can't learn English any better than she currently can, and so Vince isn't gonna move any further with her. So much for all that NXT noise. Wow, it's a shame, but I'm glad that Oscar had the run that she did, and she got the big match with Charlotte at WrestleMania, because that was a moment, and I love that match. Nick says they need a mainstream type talent to get non-wrestling fans in. Rousey brings that. She headlines whoever it is. That is true. I feel like Ronda isn't bringing in as much hype as they probably wanted to, and her special aura isn't really what it was because she's there every week. And that was something I was thinking about. How is it going to work? And it does kind of taper off, but still, they do get those headlines because of the name that she has built over the years into MMA career. It's going to be hard for this show to top last night. Yeah, I watched some of Takeover last night. I feel like a real old fart. I really do, but a lot of it, I just no, I don't. The Gargano Black match was really good, but I mean, it's every strike is like, and they're just like they're slapping their thighs on every strike, and when the match ended, I was like, oh, that was the finisher, like because every strike seems the same. Every strike looks like it absolutely kills them. They are masters at making those strikes look lethal, but they use them 50 times a match, and I end up not really caring that much about the action, which is a real shame because it was such a good match. The storytelling was so great in that match, but I kept getting pulled out of it by all these thigh slaps. Totally agree. Rousey's been very good. She needs to improve, but she's getting there. Yeah, she's still green, but the things she does well, she does really fucking well. So I guess I can round this off now. We have about 9 minutes before the show starts. Brock Lesnar. My fickle, hopeful heart wants a competitive match. I mean, I remember back when Brian won the title at WrestleMania 30, where I was at in person. Uh, and the build up to that SummerSlam, after following that, would be Brian keeping the title till SummerSlam and facing Brock Lesnar. I remember him giving an interview and saying that was his dream match, and he felt like he would show people something they'd never seen before in a Brock Lesnar match. Oh, how I wanted to see that. And then he got hurt. But then we found out that it was just going to be the John Cena match, which would have been 20 minutes of Brock Lesnar suplexing Daniel Bryan, and then pinning him. So we wouldn't have got the match that he would have wanted. So do we now, 4 years later, get to see the match that Daniel Bryan wanted to have with Brock Lesnar, which in my mind is some kind of David and Goliath actual competitive match? I don't think so. I really, really want to see it, and I'm excited for the possibilities. The fact they're in a match together is exciting to me because I think Brock, when pushed by someone who's great, like he did last year with AJ Styles, he can be incredible. When Brock is on autopilot and just doing F5s, boring as shit to me. That record has been played far too many times. Now he is about to do another fight with the UFC coming up, and it's Daniel Bryan, and he's just turned heel, so there isn't that kind of the David and Goliath babyface versus heel um, dynamic there. So I just have no idea how this is going to go. But my heart tells me that no, my heart tells me that it's going to be everything I want it to be. My brain tells me the logical part of my brain tells me that dude, no, it Brock comes out F5 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 1 2 3 done done dun 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 done. It's finished. I really can't see any other option. Maybe Braun Strowman comes out. I mean, I don't know, but staying up late for something like this is kind of what I live for. It's the thrill of what maybe could happen. You never know. I remember the AJ Styles match last year. I think it started off with Brock just dominating AJ, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be this. And then AJ started fighting back, and it became this like competitive match. Oh my god, it was so exciting. So I want that again, but I just don't see it. I don't feel like Brock is going to be interested in doing it, but who knows? Coming from a backyard wrestler's point of view, is it hard to enjoy a match by noticing the little details? Perhaps that's what it is that I used to wrestle for so many years, but not so much. I don't know. Perhaps it is, I suppose. Yeah, knowing some of the tricks. I won't say of the trade because I was never really a professional. Um, but, knowing a lot of that stuff and having practiced a lot of that stuff, there's just yeah, there is part of it, the little details, I do get hung up on them, and I wish I didn't. It's almost like, I guess, when you watch a movie and like, "Oh, so they used a tracking shot there." I don't know, maybe that's a poor comparison, but there's definitely something to be said for my kinda intimate understanding of what it's like to be in a wrestling match that kind of throws me off sometimes. But then again, my old wrestling friends who I used to wrestle with, they don't have those problems with the thigh slapping, so maybe there's nothing to that. The tag team match was brilliant in the pre-show. I'm not watching the pre-show, unfortunately. I think Bryan and Brock wrestle rather the German suplex times 12. Maybe it's more hope, but I think they just might. Yeah, I'm holding on to the hope, but I know deep down it's just going to be an F5 spam fest. Maybe Bryan will get a few kicks in. But again, I just don't know what that dynamic is going to be like now that Bryan has turned heel. So there we go. Well, that's a good 30 minutes me talking about wrestling. And yeah, they actually made the Revival look strong. That's interesting. The Revival was so good. And I just haven't really followed them, and it seems like they've kind of faded into obscurity. So that's good to hear. There's so much potential on the main roster, but you have to. I always say you have to sift through so much shit to get to the good stuff when it comes to the main roster. But NXT, I mean, they do a lot of great stuff. I just don't have the time to keep up with anything regularly these days. But so for me, when it comes to wrestling, it's all about the what's the kind of hot thing of the moment. So Becky Lynch, for example, I'll be watching like her segments on YouTube or whatever. So I have no time for full shows, with the exception of pay-per-views occasionally. So I really just follow the things that I'm more interested in, and so it's all about kind of the thing of the moment, I suppose. And Lucha House Party is actually very enjoyable. Never even heard of that. I'm assuming it's something to do with the luchadors in the WWE, Kalisto, etc. Hello, Daniel Moore. I'm good, thank you very much. Although we're just about to wrap things up because again, Survivor Series is about to start. I won't be watching the full show, but I think I might stay up to see the matches I really want to see. Is this about wrestling or movies? Says Isaac Dunn. It's about wrestling, but again, we're at the end of it now, so there's there's not too much more to talk about. I mean, I could keep rattling on about wrestling because there's so much I haven't talked about. Because I like to do these Wrestle Diaries like fairly regularly, and I haven't done one in about 6 months, I think. So I think the last one was the Okada Omega 4 thoughts. But yeah, on an unrelated note, looking forward to your Crimes of Grindelwald thoughts. Yes, it's taken a while for me to see that film. I wish I could have seen it on release, but me and Connie are going to go and see it, so we have to wait for our days off to match. So Wednesday we'll be seeing it. So you might see a video by next Friday, something like that. Nick says, I'm very similar. I haven't watched Raw in ages, but the women's segments on TV over the last few weeks on YouTube have really killed it. I agree, and it's just fun to see that. It's just a different change of pace. It's exciting. The whole kind of SmackDown invasion was really fun. Not so fun when Becky got hurt, but it was a moment, and just that image of Becky up in that crowd with the blood down her face, just proper, just like so confident, and then Ronda in the ring, just absolutely livid. Awesome, great storytelling. I just hope they can sustain that to WrestleMania because it could be a really big moment. Mario says, "All right, see ya. Enjoy the pay per view. I have a feeling it's going to be good. I hope it's a good one." Um, Isaac says, "Okay, love your channel, but no offense, I don't like wrestling." Then why are you here? No, that's cool, man. No worries at all. I understand completely. That's why I don't do too many of these things because most of my subscribers follow me for the movies. But I do wrestling videos every now and again, so you'll just have to put up with them and scroll past them. But thank you all the same. I'm glad that you love my channel. I appreciate that very much. What do you think of the Page film trailer if you've seen it? Alice Good kind of. We'll end on that. It looks okay. I don't like that they've kind of manufactured like these scenes with Paige and The Rock, which didn't take place. It just seems like he's trying to insert himself into that story a bit more than he should. But it sells the movie, so that's an act that it does. It's going to allow that story to be seen by more people. So I understand why he's doing it. I don't think it's an ego stroke. I think there is a smart reason behind it. But yeah, I'm going to see it. I love Nick Frost. It's just a very random combination of things. Paige's life story, written and directed by Stephen Merchant, produced by The Rock, starring Nick Frost. It's just like a weird combination of things. But yeah, and interestingly enough, I was there live for that moment that they're going to show in the film when Paige won her first title. Get a chance to see Takeover. Dream and Champa match was pretty epic. I didn't see that one, so I'll have to check it out. So we're now a minute away from Survivor Series. So thank you guys for hanging out and chatting. I really appreciated some of you people coming in and chatting. Maybe we can do one of these live things again. It's kind of fun to do the Wrestle Talk live, I guess. So I can do more Wrestle Diaries live, and you guys can ask me questions that kind of get the conversation flowing. So enjoy Survivor Series. I may or may not put up a video on it, depending on how noteworthy it turns out to be. I'm excited for the two main events: Charlotte, Ronda, and Bryan Lesnar. Fingers crossed they have an actual match. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon.